Super excited to be here. Thanks to Cypher and the organizers and all the partners here in getting us an opportunity to talk about something that's really passionate to my heart. How do we really harness AI in energy transition? But before that, I thought with so many experts in the room, how do I even talk about AI when every day the newspapers are filled with stories around AI? So if you flip the newspapers today, all the middle pages are pretty much occupied with AI for this, AI for that, and so on. So you got an audience full of experts, so what is it that I can share extra? So I was just thinking about that. And like most people do nowadays, we just ask ChatGPT, right, and say, hey, can you tell me what should I talk to them about? And ChatGPT said, Kartik, use your own mental brain and give them stories. Maybe that's what they will really like. So here I am trying to tell my story and the story of Shell towards energy transition. But let's talk about digitalization first. Digitalization has become so ubiquitous. It's almost a part of who we are and what we do. For example, this morning as I was coming in the car and looking at the traffic, we obviously just flipped and looked at Google Maps and said, hey, how's the traffic looking? Especially if the rains, you have to have an angle of the traffic and see, can you get there on time even? I'm sure some of you have just flipped your phones, installed the Cypher app, and that's become so normal for us, right? Things like WhatsApp, Signal, the way we communicate. In fact, even cloud kitchens are so popular now in India. I'm sure some of you would have used that last night or even this morning. How do we explain all of what is happening to people around us? Because what was happening a few years back is probably changing at such a pace that AI and technology and digitalization has become so ubiquitous. We don't really think about it. It's like the oxygen around us or the air around us that we breathe. It's become so normal. Try explaining Cloud Kitchen to your parents and grandparents, and then good luck with that. And if you have any tips, let me know that as well. So talking about energy transition, when we look at all the examples around digitalization, whether it's even the UPI moment that India has had, or even launching the rover on the moon, which is a fantastic story I'm sure you're all proud of. All of these things, 4G, 5G, phones, and 6G being talked about now, UPI, Google Maps, all of them need energy. Right? And energy is fundamental requirement for a society today. But then we are in 2023, the biggest topic right now for us is energy transition, climate change. Over the next 25-30 minutes, I'll talk about the Shell story around energy transition, what really is energy transition, and try and answer some of your questions as well. But the main message I want to share with you is AI has got a huge place in digitalization to help us in energy transition. And over the next 3 days, as Green started talking, there's going to be so much content here. So I'm sure you'll all be curious to learn about what's out there in AI, how is it changing the society around us, and of course, the art of the possible. Okay, let's just jump straight in. This one talks about what's happening around us in the society right now, and the role digital technology plays around climate change and the climate movement. Most of you would be familiar around the Paris Agreement in the United Nations, talks about the 1.5 degrees Celsius agreement. And today, that's really important for us because the way we look at it within Shell is by 2050, we want to be a net zero emissions company. And that's quite a steep target, and we are really keen to make that happen. Because today we cannot really talk about just energy, we have to talk about energy in a climate transition context as well. So as you can see here, we do want to become net zero by 2050. The way we do that is we break our emissions into scope 1, 2, and 3. Broadly, scope 1 is about what we generate out of our own operations, loosely putting it. Scope 2 is what we use to create the production that we have and all the operations that we need. And scope 3 is our indirect emissions depending on the products that we sell. So what we have said as a company is by 2050, we are going to be a net zero emissions company. The way we are working towards that is where we bring in the energy mix into play. For example, we are having about 9 billion liters of sustainable fuels and blended fuels into our fuel stations. So blended fuels, as you know, is a very sustainable fuel. 10% of the world's hydrogen electrolyzers, hydrogen again is a great source of energy going forward, is owned by Shell. We in Shell own 46,000 retail stations. Retail stations in the Indian context is basically the petrol forecourts and the petrol pumps. And we own 46,000 of them. And across the 80 markets. And then there are 90,000 electric charge points that Shell is having today in its footprint. And we in fact roll out one electric charger every 15 minutes. So we are really passionate about the future around electric chargers and what that has to offer. So the point I want to make is Shell is very passionate about energy transition. We do want to meet the targets, and we are doing all that we can as a part of the energy transition story. The key thing connecting that back to the focus of this AI session is digital technology is fundamental. All of that, what I just said, without digital technology, without harnessing the power of AI, we cannot really achieve any of these targets just in isolation. So let's talk about a little bit about the energy industry itself. I guess some of the participants here may not really understand the energy industry that well. For example, a couple of years back when I was new to the energy industry, I thought, hey, you just go to the petrol pump, fill up petrol, and that's about it. It's also pretty ubiquitous. Or today, just go to the electric charger, charge your bike, scooter, car, and that's about it. But if you really step back and peel the onions a little bit and go back to, hey, where did this petrol really come from? Where did the electric charge come from? How did the electric charge or the electrons in the electric charger come into being? And then we really go back into the energy industry. The energy industry, for example, in petrol, in oil and gas, spans right from the subsurface where we have to explore the wells, then that has to be produced, and then we move that to downstream, we have to refine it, that's called crude refining, and then we have to market it, we have to trade it, we have to transport it, and then lo and behold, it arrives at the petrol station. This is a very, very complex ecosystem. So just to give you an example of that. Similarly, even for the electron value chain, or the electric charges that I was talking about, the complexity of right from generating the energy all the way to consumption is immense. All of that needs huge amount of digital technology. And we are using AI within digital technology to really power that to a large extent. So let's talk about this one. So there are two forces really shaping this whole energy transition right now. I talked about energy transition, the Paris climate agreement around 1.5 degrees Celsius. So the whole energy mix is changing. So we have traditional fuels, we've got wind, solar, bio, hydrogen, and so on. And then there are non-competitors which are not the traditional ones. Some of you might have heard about virtual power plants, right? So virtual power plants are virtual, but they look at aggregating this power from different sources, maybe even from your homes, and then that is supplied into the grid. So it's no longer a traditional energy ecosystem where we have only the big players. We've got everyone right now in the mix, and hence we talk about the complex energy mix. We talk about the different sources, but on the flip side, the challenge is we've got an immense demand, as I said, for energy. Whether it is aviation, whether it is the way you came in today through your vehicles, whether it is ships, whether it is transportation, and whether it is data centers that power most of our digital applications today. The dilemma is there is increasing demand for energy. And then how do you balance that increasing demand for energy with climate change? That's the dilemma all of us face, not just the energy companies. Right? So think about that for a moment. We have this dilemma right now. There's a humongous need for energy. Balance that with climate change. So that's the big dilemma. So towards that, the two forces we see on the digitalization front, as you can see, a lot of opportunities around digitalization. For example, there was a recent study Microsoft and PwC did, and where they said, if we use AI smartly, we can actually reduce CO2 emissions and greenhouse gas emissions. That's the real power of AI. So think about that again. So if we use that smartly. The International Energy Association also says that innovation, new technologies is the answer to help us towards climate change. So, I mean, There's so much innovation going on around us. If we really tap into innovation, tap into the R&D thinking, tap into creativity, those are the sort of solutions we need for climate change, not the traditional ones. So I talked about what AI could potentially do. Of course, AI also has a positive side around it. It's going to create a lot of jobs. People get scared about what is the flip side of AI, but the positive side is it's going to create a lot of jobs. I think that's one of the reasons why most of you are here to learn about the art of the possible and network and learn from each other as well. But these are fundamentally some of the challenges we face in the energy ecosystem. In Shell, we are addressing this through three things. One, our own operations. I spoke about scope 1. So I'll spend a few minutes about that in terms of how do we reduce the footprint of our operations using AI and digital. So for example, we have a lot of these refineries, a lot of these production sites. These are humongous. They use billions of dollars of cost to generate oil, gas, and the energy mix. Now, these IT systems which support these refining operations or production operations need to be pretty smart. They need to be connected to a lot of sensors, and I'll talk about that as well. But in terms of our own efficiency, we use the sensor data to really look at whether our CO2 emissions can be reduced. So today in Shell, we use a lot of these IoT devices, in fact millions of them, and we are looking at the IoT data and analyzing them and saying, how can we reduce the flaring of some of our refineries? And we have realized that in one of the assets that we have, by applying AI, our CO2 emissions came down. And this came down almost to the scale of about 50,000 to 60,000 cars on the street. That is the amount of CO2 we remove. So we're really proud about that one. In addition, the industry, as I said, is so complex. We use a lot of raw materials and supplies. So the inventory for us, how we manage inventory, how we manage supply chain is extremely critical. And here we talk about the inventory optimizer. So inventory optimizer is again a Shell solution where we are using AI to really smartly talk about, can I be using inventory optimally within Shell? So that's given us significant benefits as well. And when we use inventory optimizers, we combine that with 3D printing. In fact, we have 3D printers which print some of these really difficult to get valves as an example that we use very much in the energy mix. And by using these smartly, we are reducing the carbon footprint because we can then print them much closer to the asset. So those are some of the examples of how we reduce our scope 1. Again, just to reiterate, scope 1 is our own operations, the emissions from our own operations. And then we talk about customers. So as I started off saying, energy is used by all of us. We are consumers of energy. We have both B2B and B2C customers, as you can imagine, a company like ours. I spoke about the electric charger and the whole electron value chain, just like the oil and gas value chain, which we refer to the hydrocarbon value chain. On the electron value chain, when we insert a smart charger, there is a lot that goes behind that as well. So let me talk through the AI example there as an example. So smart chargers need electricity, and that electricity again is coming with a mix of the energy mix where it is generated through the power grid into the smart charger. Now, where we place the smart charger is very, very key, as you can imagine. Our country, India, is pretty big. Again, the roads that obviously need to be thought through in terms of where we smartly put a smart charger so that the maximum number of people can use it. So we have AI algorithms that tell us that so-and-so location is the best use of where we can implement smart chargers. Now, the electricity that is coming into the smart chargers is again a mix, as I said, right? It's the electrons are getting generated through different sources. Now, those sources can vary depending on the time of the day. So if there are solar, wind, and the traditional oil and gas and coal supplying electricity to the smart charger, how can we really optimize this so that it is cheap for the customer who is charging it, right? And that's really critical. And when we talk about optimization, we talk about AI as well. So we are using AI algorithms in Shell, not only to place the EV charger, but also to look at the mix and to make it cheap for the consumer. So that's one example. The other one that we're really proud of, which is out in the news again recently, is in the airline industry. Jet fuel, as you know, and most of you would have traveled, jet fuel is high emissions generating fuel. Recently, the industry has moved towards sustainable aviation fuel, or it's also known as SAF or SAF. Sustainable aviation fuel or SAF uses bioethanol from biosources, wherein you can actually blend some of this. It's also happening in India, where we are blending ethanol into the fuel mix, and it makes it much more non-fossil based. Right? So the whole industry is moving quite excitedly towards sustainable aviation fuel. What Shell has done, along with American Express Global Business Travel, is we have created this platform called Avilia, which is based on blockchain technology, wherein any business traveler, for example, in a corporate company, if he's traveling, can actually look at the carbon credit, because the jet or the flight he was or she was in is now using a mix of sustainable aviation. Right? So that's bioethanol. So by understanding the carbon credit of travelers, of business travelers, we are enabling corporates to really reduce their carbon footprints and their emission footprints. Now that is based on blockchain platform, and it's known as Avilia. In fact, last couple of days have been multiple announcements, including Emirates Airlines has now joined this consortium with Shell and American Express Global Business Travel Fund. So the benefit is, when we have so much data for corporates and for individuals who are business travelers, then you can apply advanced analytics on top of that and really get insights from that. So those are two examples of where we are actually using it to reduce our emissions, but helping the decarbonization of our customers. Okay. The third and the last angle is, what are we doing towards getting a better energy mix? So this one talks about designing the energy system of the future. As I started off saying, the energy system of the future is going to be hybrid, it's going to be traditional, and it's going to have wind, solar, and so on. So we have two examples that I wanted to share with you today, where again we are using AI and the power of digitalization. When you talk about wind, we talk about these large wind farms, right? And then there are wind turbines. Now, wind is a bit like fluid from a physics standpoint, so we apply fluid dynamics along with our data scientists to really model how you would change the angle of the wind turbine. That's called optimizing the wind turbine. Now, when we optimize the wind turbine, it has got an effect on the turbine ahead of you or behind you in a large wind farm. So when the wind farm has multiple turbines, just optimizing one turbine is not sufficient. And therefore, we have algorithms using AI now that not only optimizes one turbine, but also optimizes the whole farm. And that is a complex use case where we are using physics, because this is computational fluid dynamics. Wind is a bit like fluid. And that's the real power of AI when you combine that with physics as well. So that's one example. The other one, I talked about hydrogen earlier. Hydrogen is out there. It's the energy mix of the future. It's a very popular energy source, but it takes a lot of effort to transport hydrogen, whether it is through pipelines or through cryogenic tankers. Now, safely transporting hydrogen through these tankers again needs a lot of digital solutions and advanced analytics. So we are applying AI algorithms to actually look at how can we safely transport hydrogen in a safe manner using these cryogenic tankers. So those are two examples that I thought I'll share when we talk about the energy system of the future. Some statistics here that I will let you soak in. So we have more than 100 AI-based applications today in Shell. We are a leader in AI, really proud about what we have done. We have 4 trillion rows of sensor data. I talked about IoT. We have millions of sensors in our mix because we operate right from extraction, exploration, through to production, through to downstream refining, all the way to the retail pump. This whole operations is filled with millions of sensors. And when we have millions of sensors, we have billions of rows of data for IoT data that we are collecting real time per minute. And that's the amount of data that we can actually use to do AI on. So we introduced this concept of predictive maintenance. So predictive maintenance is all about analyzing IoT data, and then you can look at which of your equipment is going to fail over the next coming weeks and months. So that is predictive maintenance. And by using these AI algorithms, we can actually predict that if this equipment is going to fail using this IoT data, can we actually prevent that and replace that in advance? So that's an example of how we use this trillion amount of information from our IoT data that's coming through the sensors. The 17,000 refers to the number of equipments that we have. So as I was saying, the examples that I just took was about replacing one of those equipments. A scale of 17,000 equipments is immense. This is right again through the old values. We have the Go Plus app. There's about 8 million people who are registered onto that, and it's a loyalty-based application where we really say that if you're going to fuel at our station, can I offer you loyalty and rewards? So we're really proud about this application, but that's again the fundamental of that is around AI. And we then decide whom to give a reward to, what is the customer behavior, what is the consumer behavior, can I give you this product, can I not give you this product based on AI and machine learning. So that's the 8 million. And we have realized that computational data scientists are a key capability that we want to build. So we now have about 600 odd people who are specialists. They are data scientists and they understand AI and ML, and we are growing that capability as well. And as you spend more and more time, we do have a shell booth outside where you can talk to some of them, and over the course of the 3 days as well, we're going to be experts. We're going to talk about data science, AI and ML. And lastly, as I said, mobility is again ubiquitous. In our industrial scenario, we have 9,000 mobile users. They don't use the standard phone that you and I use. They use industrialized phones and iPads that are meant to be used in these scenarios. So the point I wanted to talk to is Shell is embracing digitalization at pace, and digitalization fundamental lever there is AI. We're really proud about some of the use cases that we are using. A couple of years back, just to give you an example, we didn't even have drones and bots in our operation. But today we have about 1,200 drone sorties that we have done. And we've got a lot of robots going through our facilities, actually looking at different points of data using machine vision, and we're looking at safety incidents and so on. Right? So the pace of scale of change, even in the energy industry and in Shell, has actually been immense. That doesn't happen by magic, as we all know, in large companies. And there has to be concerted effort towards that. So I want to talk about 4 key enablers. One, of course, is the senior leadership. We have our group CIO, who's a part of the business agenda, as a key part of the business agenda, and that helps us in actually agreeing with all our consumers and businesses within Shell in terms of the agenda itself. And how can we be a real digital partner? So the concept of digital roadmaps, I'm sure you're all familiar with. Having an ITT or an IT strategy that is handshook with the business is very critical for us. So having strong leadership who are a key partner with our internal business has been a fantastic enabler. We cannot do anything without collaboration. Even this event, as you can see, is a collaborative effort with a lot of partners that were mentioned earlier. We are very proud about our collaboration and the ecosystem. Today we work significantly with partners like SAP, Microsoft, Salesforce, and a lot of them. With Microsoft, for example, we have an agreement to supply them 500 megawatts of sustainable energy or renewable energy for their data centers. And in return, we are also saying that we will work with their AI stack, the Power App stack, and we have actually built hundreds of applications in the Microsoft stack. So this is just an example of what we do in the ecosystem and the collaboration. I want to talk about the open standards. Of course, there's a lot of push towards open ecosystems. With LF Energy or the Linux Foundation Energy, we have actually exposed one of our real-time data ingestion platform called RTDIT. That's on open source. what that allows is for large companies to actually use that API and integrate that to your IoT systems so that you can then look at your real-time data or the time series data and analyze it. So we actually given it away free. It's a part of the Linux Foundation open source. People are downloading it. There are about 20,000 downloads every month, so that's quite popular. And we are also a part of the Open Footprint. Open Footprint is a consortium. We are one of the leading players there. The whole idea is how can companies look at their emissions data? Right? How can they look at the footprint? It goes back to my scope 1, 2, and 3. So we are a key part of the Open Footprint ecosystem. Lastly, it doesn't come without culture. Someone was saying culture is the most important thing ahead of the strategy of companies as well. So we have an innovation culture at Shell. And there's a lot of work that we have been recently started doing on DIY, or citizen development, where we say that not everyone needs to be in the IT field. Right? Any business user will train them as a citizen developer or a power user on the stacks like Power Apps, Power BI, and they can go ahead and develop their own applications. Isn't that fantastic? So we have citizen developers in addition to the IT team. In fact, about earlier this year, there were 2 use cases built by citizen users that have actually been put into production around refining optimization based on our. So that's the real power of innovation culture. This week, talking about culture, we have the Shell.ai week. It's a big event where over 5,000 professionals in Shell get together along with partners in the ecosystem, talking about the real power of AI and how we can all come together to solve the larger energy transition challenge. So that's happening as we speak, and that's a fantastic event as well. So we have the Shell.ai event going on right now. Probably let you look at this slide, just a glimpse of all the things that I've talked about, right from the open footprint, the subsurface data, and the 3D imaging that we use. This is really cool technology. It takes a lot of effort to get us here. And once we have the subsurface, the 3D models there, then we can apply AI and we can get insights about that. I talked about the electric charger and how it is using the smart AI algorithm earlier. I talked about the rewards, and of course I talked about some of the examples of our robotics. So there's a lot happening here, including the drone and the crawler that is going at the bottom of the screen. So just a glimpse of the scale of adoption of digitalization and AI. Okay, so as I come towards the end of my part at least, I just wanted to encourage that over the next 3 days, as I think Vinith was starting to say, you're going to be immersed with so much data around what is the art of possible in AI. Be curious, be open, open to networking, learning from your colleagues. This is a 3-day event where there's going to be a lot to learn. We have fantastic speakers from Shell as well. So we got Chiranjeev, Prakal, Lax, our leaders Guna, Tirthankar and Shashank, who are going to be here over the next 3 days talking about how Shell is using AI and the various topics out there, including leadership topics as well. I encourage you to come and attend these and absolutely learn from these as well. Okay, so as I come towards the closure, I just want to share what I started with saying. The power of digitalization, it is so ubiquitous, it's all around us. So it's a fantastic story. Digitalization is here to stay. But when you mix that with energy transition, these are the big forces that we face ourselves. So energy transition is how do we move towards the energy mix, the huge demand of energy, and how do we meet our climate change targets. And we are really proud at Shell to be a part of that journey. There was a saying I heard from the NVIDIA founder a couple of days back, and he said, AI, if used properly by companies are going to thrive. And the companies that don't use AI are not going to thrive. So that's quite a strong statement, I think, and something for us all to take away, I think. But as I finish, I do have a request and a call for action. Energy transition is not just a problem for me or for energy companies, it's a problem for society because of the humongous amount of energy we need and the climate change target. So it's for all of you also to be a part of supporting us in the energy transition, dilemmas that we play and the journey. And of course, I mean, we all do this for the planet as well. So with that, my plea is let's support all that we can do towards that. So with that, I want to thank the organizers of Cypher. I hope I was able to give a glimpse of what is the art of the possible in AI. And thank you, and I open it up for questions.
Thank you very much. If you have a question, please put your hand up in the air, or if you can stand up and get the attention of the gentlemen who are walking around with the mics. We will get a mic to you. Once again, if you have any questions, just put your hand up in the air or stand up and get our attention. We'll have someone with the mic come up to you. We have someone at the back. Do introduce yourself, tell us where you're from, and ask your question. Thank you.
Hello. Yeah, I'm from MetLife Noida office. I have a quick question. Like, you talked about what and like how we can implement. Can you just talk a little bit of how we can implement in some of the areas the AI thing in your span?
You'll have to repeat that again. First of all, I can't see you thanks to the glare, but if you can stand up and ask that, thank you.
Yeah, I'm more interested like how you implemented AI in some of our areas. Just one example.
AI for what, sorry?
In Shell, like any example how you implemented.
Okay, so for example, I'll take another example. I shared a lot of examples here. So in our subsurface world, we have this concept where we have to look at the rock properties, right? I mean, oil doesn't flow automatically. We have to actually extract oil from deep down the earth. Now, these rock samples, we apply images which are similar to CT scans and MRIs. So by applying multiple of these images, geologists and geophysicists actually look at, this is a nice place to even dig so that we can get oil and gas from this. So when we have such millions of rows of data and millions of images of our rock samples, traditional method was for our lab scientists and geophysicists to actually look at these pictures and say, this is the property of this rock, this is where it makes sense to actually invest and dig. Over the last couple of years, we have applied AI algorithms on top of these MRI scans, if I can simplify it, so that the AI algorithms using high performance compute, are actually saying that these properties in these rocks, thanks to these millions of images that we have, and these are really high resolution images, the quality of the MRIs, we can then say that such and such place is perhaps a better place where we can extract from, right? So that's another example where we are using AI algorithms but on digital images, and we are really proud about the returns on this in terms of helping our scientists and geophysicists look at where we can go for the next oil resource or the gas resource. Just an example.
My name is Shriram. I'm from Meridian. Kartik, very nice presentation. One quick question about you didn't refer to anything about Gen AI. So there's a lot of talk about Gen AI. And is Shell planning to use Gen AI anywhere? And the second point is with Gen AI, there's a big issue about data going out to the cloud. So what are your thoughts on having a private Gen AI? Or whether actually you're going to use Gen AI or not is the question.
Fantastic question, and I was hoping when the Gen AI topic would come up, so there it goes. We can't have a conference now without Gen AI, right? Absolutely, we use Gen AI. It's fair to say that Gen AI is right at the inception. I mean, it's been there for a few months, and the crazy pace of organization adopting to what is the art of the possible on Gen AI. And we are also in that stage where we are really exploring the art of the possible. For example, there are solutions around efficiency, learning. These are the standard examples out there where most organizations are using Gen AI, and we are also using it. Your dilemma around the data going out is a dilemma that we face as well, and therefore we have decided that we will have the Gen AI instance within our own Shell perimeters, like most companies would do right now, and that's something that we're doing. So, in fact, my team is actually working on that as well. So, really proud to say that we are using all the powers of GenAI. But I would also want to say that there are a lot of questions like ethics that we need to be careful about in the legal and regulatory. And it is right at its infancy, so we are being careful about how we navigate that whole space.
Hello. Hi Kartik, it's a fantastic insights from Shell. So my one thing I would like to know is how about what is the actions you guys are taking in terms of projects, capital hand-over projects, and implementing AI in those aspects? Because that is also a lot of information, data getting generated and transferred into operation.
I guess you're referring to the capital-intensive projects like the...
Yeah, capital projects, building plants and construction of facilities.
Right. So obviously, right, capital projects are no different in a way from our large installations, whether it is in exploration, production, refining. So the examples that I use on capital projects are very similar. In fact, some of the new capital projects, we don't have many now, some of the new ones are tending to become digital trendsetters. Right? So what I mean by that is they are using a mix of all of the technologies that I mentioned, whether it is AI for safety or whether it is the worker. We have now put augmented reality and cameras on these helmets for some of these workers along with the mobile tabs that they carry so that they can work in a seamless manner with the control room or the head office by having an integrated AR/VR experience. So the art of the possible is immense. All the examples around the bots and the crawlers and the drones that I talked about are also being used. Not just in the production sites that we are already out there, but even in the capital intensive or the new ones that we are using. Talking of capital projects, we are building right now our Holland hydrogen capital projects. It's one of the largest in the world where we are building capacity to actually generate hydrogen. So look it up. It's a really cool project as well.
Hey Kartik, I'm Ayush from the Commonwealth Bank of Australia. Thank you for the engaging presentation. I think saw a stat on the slide which said Shell has 600 data scientists and 5,000 plus citizen data scientists. Really keen to understand how has the organization reached to that stage in terms of democratization of AI, and how do we create more citizen data scientists in our organizations?
Great question, thank you. A couple of years back, our CIO realized that it's not just the IT team that needs to be enabled to create IT applications. So we said, why don't we democratize this whole thing and let a lot of our technology folks who sit in the business, who are quite excited about the latest in technology and the emerging tech, how can we give them the tools? Right? So traditionally, organizations don't give them developer access because there's always the fear that you could cook up the next thing and put it into production and the whole thing comes down. But then we decided that we will do that in a structured way. Right? So we decided that there'll be stacks or platforms that we'll use. Power BI, Power Apps is one of them that we use a lot. And we categorize them as something that is pretty safe for people to use. So we did a huge amount of learning and development for these people. And definitely the young ones who are interested in technology picked up Power BI, Power Apps, and then it became a bit of a cascading event within Shell that one refinery or one asset starts doing this, they talk about it, they become ambassadors of that application, and then you see more and more assets all over the globe saying that, hey, I got a few people who know technology, I can build it for my problem because you have other priorities or you have your whole stack that you need to build, right? So I think over the course of the years, with a lot of focus on ambassadorship, the good work has also talked about it, and helped, and of course the leadership presence has also helped. So I think now we have a very strong DIY community. We call it Do It Yourself, which is also called Citizen Development, and it's collected so much pace that it's on its own now. It's on its own journey. And we are very happy in IT because then we can focus on the larger application, the more complex integration. Right? So hopefully that answers you. Your first part of the question. I know there was the second part. If you can repeat that, that will help.
I think that answers any learnings that we can adopt in our organization, especially on non-data scientists. How do we get them on the journey? But I think you answered it partially, Kartik. So,
I mean, just be careful about the controls as well. Be careful around what you can allow and what you can't. Once you define that, then you look at, can you really encourage them and give them the tools so that they can actually play around with it. There's an element of playing around and understanding what these tools can offer. And of course, encourage it as well, like all companies need to do it. And then it becomes a nice way to encourage your staff. They get excited about it. And then you don't have to do much, you don't have to sit back and watch.
Hi Kartik. It was a nice presentation when you have given an answer on the exploration geology, being an education of a geology as a background. It was like just in 30 seconds you explained how a geology can help in understanding the porosity and permeability of the basin. My question is like how you guys are working in the carbon credit, carbon footprints, like how you are implementing AI into carbon credits, carbon footprints, or maybe in sustainability. Sustainability is again a very big topic, but I just want to understand for this.
So maybe I'll dive deeper into the Amelia example, because that I think is something that you folks can relate to. So today when a business traveler takes a flight, you don't really know the fuel that went into the flight. Right? So what we have launched with Amelia as a program along with Emirates, KLM and a few other airlines is they are saying that when you fuel our flight, if it is mixed with sustainable aviation fuel or bioethanol or biofuels, it is gone to a mix. And we don't know what that mix is, right? Because it's gone to the flight. What we are saying is we're using blockchain. Basically, that is a platform that helps us in traceability. That's the real power of the blockchain technology. We can trace how much SAF, or sustainable aviation fuel, went into that flight. Business travelers who are sitting in that flight now know what proportion of that was sustainable. So if you got another flight, you would know that this part of my flight, from a carbon credit standpoint, was sustainable. So that's just an example of where I think we can use technology. But measuring how much carbon credit you have, I think really helps.
We have time for one last question. This will be the last question.
Hi Kartik, thanks for the presentation. It's basically a two-part question. So me, I'm Rituraj and I'm from Fischer, France. We are a waste management company and here I'm representing also Electric with whom we are working in India. So my question is, Shell has always been branded as an oil, let's say manufacturer and a domain in the oil production. So how do you position yourself when it comes to the intermittency of the wind power and the energy mix that you talked about during the presentation? How do you actually position yourself moving from a brand from the oil then to an energy mix which is more on a broader perspective and a broader scope of energy transition that's happening in today's global market? And the second part of the question is more on the waste management. So what is Shell actually doing with AI when it comes to handling the waste that is generated during the entire production of the manufacturing process at Shell?
First one is a great question, goes back to my energy transition element that all of us face. We at Shell definitely are using the energy mix. So as I was mentioning, we have 10% of the electric hydrolyzers, we have biofuels, we have wind, we have solar. We are taking a lot of encouragement with all-in hydrogen and the whole hydrogen play. So for us, I think I would call Shell as an integrated energy company where we have obviously the traditional oil and gas that forms a big part of what we do. But we have to mix that with reality around sustainability and the goals that we have signed up for, as I started off at the earlier part of my talk. So we are very serious about climate change and the energy transition and the 2050 target. To meet that, we have to have the energy mix ourselves, right? So therefore, the whole management leadership is very committed, and it's a genuine mix. And of course, there's more and more R&D happening around biofuels as well to make it more and more sustainable. So I would say it's a mix of traditional along with wind, solar, hydrogen, and there's more to come. So that's a part of our strategy, right? We call that the powering progress strategy. So It's available on shell.com, so have a look at that when you have a few minutes. Hopefully I answered that part of the question. On waste management as well, that is the second part of the question. We are applying, I'll have to keep it short, looking at the clock here. We are applying digitalization for waste management as well. So a lot of our refineries, a lot of our production sites generate a lot of waste. And digital waste management and using AI algorithms, be smart around waste management is something that we're using as well. I'm sure we can interact offline to address some of those questions and talk about some of the use cases which I'll be able to share. But I've been given the warning here around my time. So again, thank you again to Cypher 2023. Really excited. Thanks to the organizers. I hope you enjoy the next 3 days. Fantastic learning and have some fun as well. Thank you.